Welcome to the first video of the channel. Here we're going to look into the issue of the evil, organised paedophile rape gangs spanning the whole of the UK. This is an interview with Mohan Singh on the Liam Tuff's YouTube channel. Mohan speaks about his experience with these gangs and what he had to do to protect those girls. He's a very well respected Sikh leader, founder of the Sikh Awareness Society, which helps young girls escape these gangs, and he's a true hero.
What is the charity predominantly known for?
We set up for sexual abuse because these are subjects that within the community, it was like a taboo subject and you couldn't talk about it. So there's a lot of other subjects like mental health and domestic violence and stuff like that, which we cover as well. But primarily it was set up for the whole grooming process because nobody understood what actual grooming is. And we set ourselves out to, so the word Sikh is our faith. Awareness, it was a society set up to raise awareness of heinous crimes committed against young people.
Okay, so there were Sikh victims, very much like we've got young white British victims.
Oh, 100%.
Because you don't hear much about Sikh children being victims of grooming.
True.
In the mainstream media.
In the mainstream media, you don't. And from working with the Sikh community, we started working with the Hindu community and other communities as the name and fame went out there. So we work with, we've still got the original name, but we work with all communities. And we had a spate of cases at that time, which we thought we need to sort of highlight them and take them out to the community so that they can protect their children, protect their families, because these were heinous crimes committed against young children, and within the Indian culture, honor is a big aspect, and because of the honor, we call it izzat. Because of the honor, we didn't have people go into the police or go into the authority because then everybody will find out, and we had to work with when we first started, we had to work with sort of one hand tied behind our backs, really, more or less.
Let's talk about the main perpetrators of these grooming gangs. So you've been doing this for many, many years. So you've seen probably countless grooming gang cases. What community are predominantly raping our children?
We got it from the Pakistani community. And that's to say, because when we set up a helpline, I'm not saying other communities are doing it or not doing it. All the calls that we got, 98% from parents, was reporting that to us, and then we would investigate the case and help the family and help the child. So I can only go on by the calls that we got. And that was predominantly the Pakistani community.
What do you think was such the big issue? Because it's only until now, and we're talking, I mean, you know better than me, this has been going on for decades, and they were referred to, and it used to really push my buttons, and I'd imagine more so for you, the way they were described as Asian grooming gangs.
Yeah, because if you just, it suits the media narrative and governmental narrative. Now, my argument regarding that has always been because I'm a football fan, yeah? And when England went out abroad to play football in the early 70s and 80s and 90s, we had that problem of hooliganism, yeah? Where they just have too much to drink and they revolt if they've lost a match or something like that. But they were never referred to as European hooligans. They were referred to as English hooligans. So if you can differentiate from there, Asia's a massive continent. You know, Chinese, Koreans, Japanese, Indians. You know, why not, with your findings, because you've arrested these people, you know, you've got the data, why ain't they named and shamed And also, if you know the perpetrators, then you can put the resources, governmental resources in there to sort out the problem because you've isolated the problem. I mean, we had this problem with West Midlands Police when they would say, well, bring us the data, bring us the cases. But what we didn't know was they were sitting on data for 40 years. When the Birmingham Mail, I don't know what you call that act where they keep certain things secret and they release them after 30 years or 35 years when they see fit. The Birmingham Mail demanded it regarding the grooming. And the way they marketed certain things was like the name, so the religion and the ethnicity was out. And on the fourth column was the crime. And now you've got all that data. You tell me if you saw a Chinese name on it. You tell me if you saw a Korean name on it. You tell me if you saw what's in it. They were all the same names. So why are they asking us to produce data or information when they were really sitting on this information? And unfortunately, it was throughout the country. So whether they were told by their paymasters that they can't do certain things, or whether they're told by the politicians you can't really talk about this. The first time I came across this back in 93, it was a professor from Aston University. And the government authorized this report into this kind of behavior. I think it took 2 years to produce the report. It was given to the government. The government then said, take it back and take all the names out.
Because it would give the nationality away.
It would give the nationality away.
That's another phrase that seems to have been introduced into the mainstream, and that used to frustrate me. Grooming is part of the process, but essentially the act that takes place is rape. Why on earth aren't we using those words? Maybe it would have got people's attention a lot sooner. Grooming it's far too mild a term. And why do you think it's taken a community of Sikhs to deal with a Pakistani problem? You see, because if it was my community, if it was going on in my community, I'd make damn sure it was me and my community dealing with it and crushing these rodents that are raping our children. Why is it taking a Sikh community rather than a Pakistani community?
We just couldn't sort of turn a blind eye to it because it was very damaging. You can't go to sleep when you hear this kind of thing. You can't, the pictures, the images of what that child's told you, what's happened to them, is replaying in your head. Physically, you're in bed, your eyes are closed. And then it's repeated. And then what do you think's happening to the parents, the mother, the father? It's not affecting the child. It's affecting the whole unit. It's messing with them big time. And so we thought, let's get out there. Let's just raise awareness. Let's educate the community to look at the red flags, to see if we can prevent it from happening. So prevention is better than the cure. It's better dealing with that than the aftermath of the damage that it does to a child. And not just to the child, it does damage to your families. I remember in 2014, as the BBC were recording the documentary, we had 18 girls born in this country who we had to send outside the country for their safety. There's one particular case. It sort of took place in London. And when we found out, she was actually being made to sell herself in King's Cross. And she was being sold there. And it was such a sick mindset that the younger the person, the more money they could make. And then I remember she'd done that for 3 to 4 months. And she got in touch with us through a friend who knew of the organization. And we took her from London. We brought her into the West Midlands and housed her there. And after about 8 to 3 months of harmony, counseling her, trauma counseling, she got confidence. She put something out on her Facebook
Good on her.
or her Insta. The 9 people that were controlling her in London came to her school
To try and intimidate.
outside the school. We got the calls. We had to move very quickly. And then we thought, there's no way in the UK this girl is safe. So we had to send her to America. I took her out myself. And when the BBC were recording, we had a couple of girls in Texas. One was in California. A lot we had sent to Canada. And not long ago, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we had to send a young lady to Melbourne. And the whole system is that sort of corrupt, because this happened in Hounslow up in London. The young girl, we break her away from the group because now she's drug addicted. The police put her back into the same people's hands. And if it wasn't for a policeman with a bit of sense, because we were ready to actually go in front of the police station and said, these are the very groomers we're trying to save this girl from, and you've placed the girl back there. We were ready to, after a big meeting, that we were going to go outside the police station and just protest in our hundreds and how many we could get. Overnight, we had some calls. He says, I'm dealing with it. Where would you like this person to be? So we gave them a location that this person would be safe there. Kept her here for 2 weeks. Didn't look really good. So we had to send her out to Melbourne, Australia.
And this is the thing that really frustrates me, is that these left-leaning lunatics, when people are calling for a national public inquiry, you get the people on the left saying, there's already been an inquiry.
That was just for Rotherham.
Exactly. We need a national.
You need a national because if it's just happened in Rotherham, then that suffices. Okay? You've got it in Newcastle. You've got it in Carlisle. You've got it down Bristol. You've got it in Greater Manchester. You've got it in London. You've got it in the West Midlands. You know, we're all part of that, part of mainland Britain. So it needs a national inquiry, you know, Scotland, everybody involved. Then we can put it to bed and say, yeah, this is what's come out and this is what needs to be done. And every government needs to put their foot there. The only changes I've seen is the sentencing. The sentencing has gone stronger and stronger and stronger.
Well, that's one good thing we can take from this.
Oh, yes, 100%, because I remember there was a very high-profile case in Leeds. This was the Huddersfield gang. And I was so involved in that because there was 22 people in that group of people. These are not gangs, these are groups. They're not even friends, they're relatives. They know each other. Right? And one of the guys who was portrayed to be the leader was from a Sikh background. I was very intrigued by that. Also, we had cases in 2012 from Huddersfield that we were helping. And I remember going to court in Leeds, and a certain high-profile figure was arrested half an hour before I got there. And I went in, and I went in that day because the jury had gone out. And I thought the jury might come in that day so I can hear the verdicts and all that. And sitting in court, after a couple of hours, I don't know what you called them, but there was a clerk from the court says, if we can ask you to sort of leave. And I said, on what grounds? Have I broken any law? I had 3 girls with me, by the way. So it's me and 3 girls. No, the barristers of the groomers have pointed out, and it's making the groomers uncomfortable. I said, if I've broken the court's law, I'd walk out. It's not a problem. You tell me a law that I've broken. If they feel uncomfortable, it might be for the things they've done.
So you've experienced trafficking, grooming. What about loss of life? Any children been murdered in the end that you've had to deal with? The families?
I know one committed suicide, jumped off a bridge because she couldn't handle what had happened to her. So I would put that loss of life to the groomers because it was them messing with her, which she couldn't handle, and she took her life. And there was another young lady. So we've sort of, she was found in the south near the Dover Cliffs. She just jumped off.
There's so many layers to this depravity. It gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
It needs to be tackled.
Yeah, it's not me pushing you off a cliff or, pushing you out of a running car. But it's the scenario where they've loaded the gun and somebody else shoots it. You've messed with their head. Now they can't think critically or clear or and they can't handle life. They've just...
they've ended it.
They've ended it.
So that was the first-hand account from someone that has been on the front lines of this issue since the 90s. And all this time the government turned away or aided the scum in avoiding prosecution. What a fucking country. And why? For community cohesion? Scared of being called racist? I think there's a lot more to it than that. Here we have some inside information from Boris Johnson's chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, as he gives his account on the rape gangs.
You said in your speech that you witnessed cover-ups of the rape gangs. Now, I thought that was fascinating. Can you talk about what you saw? What happened? Did you report these people? Should they, be prosecuted for covering up these terrible crimes? Can you expand on what you said?
So obviously all over Whitehall there was mass cover-ups of the whole thing for the same reason that we've already alluded to, fear. Fear of the political consequences of facing reality. What I saw in 2011, there are lots of different things. But normally in Whitehall, the store...
Fear. Fear of what? Fear of losing their block votes. That's what they're in fear of. They use the excuse community cohesion. We don't know any unforeseen riots and stuff. Yeah, like they're scared of them in some physical way. No, it's votes. This is the government MPs. It's votes. They have block voting. They go against the Muslim community too much, or make them look bad in a bad light. The fear that they'll stop voting Labour and they'll go independent. They'll never go Conservative or anything like that. And they started to go in the last election, in the last couple of years. There's been a lot more independent groups, Muslim groups, going in for councils and local areas, and that's what they're worried about. Yeah, community cohesion. Well, look at the cohesion of the communities now since they found out they've been covering it up. It's the worst it's ever been. So no, they're not bothered about community cohesion one bit.
Well, the cliche that it's a cock-up, not a conspiracy, is generally true. The one big exception I would say is regarding child abuse.
Yeah.
There are actually multiple conspiracies constantly and largely successful.
Lots.
I watch these happening repeatedly in the Department of Education because the issue...
From the government down to the police, down to the social services.
So I had to deal with it when I was there. I would watch the redacted documents and the actual unredacted documents about lots of these cases, and you could see that the redacted documents are redacted entirely to hide the incompetence of the system. Now, what happened on the gangs is that when Andrew Norfolk at the time started to try to report the issue, the council
Tommy Robinson's been
when
reporting the issue for what,
confrontation and
15,
said,
20 years?
We want to bring a judicial review,
But he just labelled him racist and far right.
the Times' reporting and not allow it to happen. Some of the officials inside the DfE who routinely organised cover-ups on such issues were, of course, very in favour of it. But there were
Disgusting
another
as
set
these
of
people
officials
in
inside
government.
the DfE who agreed with
Name
me
'em.
that this was absolutely appalling.
Name
and
'em.
in fact, we should do the opposite. So what we ended up doing was saying to Michael Gove, you should write to the council and say that if you bring this judicial review, we will actually appear in court on behalf of the Times, not on behalf of you.
Disgusting.
That
isn't it?
obviously blew up the judicial review attempt by the council to keep it secret, and then Norfolk could publish his piece in the Times. Unfortunately, I think Norfolk died recently without even knowing that this ever even happened. But that's just one small example of something which happened many, many times on this subject over a few decades in Whitehall, which is, of course, why the system is absolutely desperate not to have an inquiry. A system which has inquiries at the drop of a hat about all kinds of, like, one person dies, public inquiry, spend 80 million quid on lawyers, take 5 years. This case involving thousands and thousands and thousands of children, no.
It just, to me, it seems
for obvious
bizarre
reasons.
there's no accountability to the people that you're talking about. I mean,
Only
Two-tier.
bizarre, it's only bizarre if you believe the old ideas about how the system works. It's not bizarre once you realise that the people there are not operating on the incentives or with the values that you think they are.
They have no
It's
values
actually
if they're willing to
standard
give
and
up their
completely
kids for
normal and
votes.
completely unsurprising.
okay.
Let
I'm
kids
going to
being
quote from your
raped.
latest blog, and you quoted Nietzsche.
For votes. Here was Starmer respond to questions from Sophie Ridge from Sky News.
But your decision now to hold an inquiry into grooming gangs after refusing 6 months ago to do so has sparked anger. Kemi Badenoch says you owe victims an apology. That
You're right.
irritates you, doesn't it? You don't think you do owe anyone an apology, do you?
Of course
Well,
not.
my
The smarmy knob.
frustration is on those that don't focus on the victims.
Flip-flopping prick.
I won't go over the last 15 years, but I brought the first prosecution 15 years ago in relation to these grooming cases. I then changed all the guidelines in criminal justice.
So
for
does this
prosecutors.
irritate you?
I then called for mandatory
Does it irritate
reporting.
you that people are accusing you of not
Look,
dealing with the
I
situation?
So why are they
tried
getting away
to
with it?
remain-
If he's so pro prosecuting these grooming gangs, then why now is he so against it? Why are they being helped by the government and by the police, let off? The girls are blamed instead. Come on.
courteous at all times. But when politicians
smarmy
who
prick, innit?
were
Look at him.
themselves in power, such as Kemi Badenoch, and did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
That's all it does. Well, when you was in, you didn't do nothing. So that's the excuse you're going to use to not do nothing. Well, you don't do it, so I ain't going to fucking do it. Knob. You're in now. Don't try and blow it back. Yeah, they fucked up. They don't do it. But they ain't in now. You got the opportunity to fucking change things, and you wouldn't fucking do it. It took this long, and with Baroness Casey to throw that in your face and say, look, this is what we found out. And he knows when the public see it, we've seen it now, but at this time, at this interview, the public hadn't seen the report yet. He knows when the public get their hands on this, if we do not have a national inquiry and start putting some justice down, then the public are going to go fucking mental.
When people like me were calling for mandatory reporting, but that fell on deaf ears. So I stand on my record in relation
Does
to the national inquiry.
does she owe people an
Well,
apology? Do the
look,
Conservatives owe people an
record.
apology?
My focus is on the victims,
Not
on this,
prosecuting
not on
that fucking-
politicians. I simply gently
What's his
point
face
out
3
that,
times, Jimmy
some
Savile.
of those that are loudest now were the people who did absolutely nothing when they had the opportunity. But I do on the national inquiry because it is important. That
And
needs to go.
I'm-
That needs to go wherever the
Yeah,
evidence
everybody
And
you-
I'm going to
takes
come
it.
on to that.
We jumped on
I
the
want to come on
bandwagon.
to that.
It was far right.
Before I do, I just
Yeah.
need to do this with you. You accuse politicians like Badenoch of jumping on a
There we go.
bandwagon for the far right.
I ain't seen this.
Was that
There we go.
misjudged to put it in those terms? Do you wish you hadn't said that now?
I was really clear that I was talking about politicians.
I know, I just
No,
said
you
that.
wasn't.
Yeah, and
No, you
I
fucking
do
wasn't.
think that those politicians need to
Anybody?
answer the question. which is why, when you were in power and had the opportunity to do
He's got
something,
disdain for the working class, the white working class he has. He hates the guts.
Bandwagon, because that's not what
You could tell how
people's
he treats
concerns
them.
about grooming gangs weren't necessarily right wing. Do you sort of wish you hadn't said it?
I don't. I've never implied that other
To
people
scare
who
the
are
working
genuinely
class and
concerned are
shutting
certainly
up
not victims.
by throwing people
I've
in
been
jail for
working
tweets and
with
shit.
Victims, I've seen firsthand
It's not
the
a right
impact it
wing
has
bandwagon, is
on
it?
victims.
No, it's not.
But I was calling out those politicians. I mean, I am frustrated in
Anyway.
politics when people shout and scream a lot and do nothing when they got the opportunity to do it. It's one of the worst.
Like you're
aspects of,
doing. You used to scream and
politics,
shout
in
a lot
my
when you was
view.
opposition.
Okay. Those calling for an
And now you
inquiry
do
had
nothing.
a point, though, didn't they? Because Casey's findings are stark. Disproportionate numbers of Asian men responsible for child sex grooming
Don't
gangs.
just say
but
Asians,
her
Pakistani
words,
men.
do-gooders
Asia's
were
a big
trying
place,
to cover
yeah?
stuff up for fear of being branded racist. Do you recognise that? And who are the do-gooders?
Well, I absolutely recognise what Louise Casey wrote in her report. I've read every word of it. It's why I've decided there needs to be a national inquiry. But also because of those words,
Forced
I'm
into
clear
it.
that inquiry must
You
go
had no
wherever
choice.
the evidence
But
is.
who are the do-gooders?
Well, I mean, that's Louise Casey's word. She will answer that for you.
You ain't
I
gonna
can tell
blame
you
nobody.
in terms, because I had 7,000 staff when I was chief prosecutor, I was very clear that ethnicity
And you still
should
did
not
fuck
play
all.
a part in any of the decisions that we took. I can't answer for other people, but I do recognise
What you on
that
about?
you
if we
think
don't
some
have a
people
national
You
didn't
inquiry,
denied
behave like you did?
following a lot of
that's
shit
a
up
concern,
because
and we need to be
of
open about that.
what do
And
you call
that
it,
was your
political
experience
correctness,
when you were
community
Well, my experience was
cohesion,
slightly
was it?
different because the
Okay.
case there was assumptions were being made about
Okay.
the reliability
It's fucking
of some
votes,
of these
man.
witnesses, which were completely wrong, which
Block
is why I
voting.
changed the system. But I don't want to duck this one because I think it is very important, Beth, that this inquiry now having been
And
put in
I-
place must go where the evidence.
Well,
and if
look-
that means into questions of ethnicity or the views that were taken by public officials,
It's a
or
cultural
others, then
thing.
that
Well,
inquiry
this-
must go there.
It's
No
obvious.
stone will be left unturned.
No
Because of how
stone
big it
unturned.
is.
This is where you have led me, because I really want to ask you this. Perpetrators
culture.
have been prosecuted by you, but no one in institutions have lost their jobs. Counsellors, social workers, policemen, civil servants,
they're all
people
in
that
on
were
it.
meant to protect these vulnerable
They all
young
knew
women, these girls.
since the 60s,
they
I
have
think it
not
was.
been prosecuted. It cannot sit easily with you. Do you want prosecutions to flow from it? Would that help with public trust?
Well, I think that the
gotta
inquiry
have
needs to go wherever
people
the
have gotta be
evidence takes
punished.
it. But then, in answer to your question, there must be accountability.
Right.
Because that is the.
But what's
reason that we
accountability?
need to
Just
leave
getting
no stone
sacked, is it?
unturned. So I'm not going to say here X, Y, Z.
What's your
action needs to be taken.
instinct?
My instinct is there must be accountability.
So you're happy for social workers? You think these people should
ain't got
be
no
held
fucking
accountable?
instinct.
Social workers, policemen, people that failed.
Where
Everyone,
the inquiry uncovers
everyone who
failure
was
or
in on it or
wrongdoing,
knew about it
there
and didn't do it
absolutely
should be fucking done in.
accountability. And that is amongst the purposes of an inquiry, and it's a statutory inquiry, as you know,
Done in, I mean,
which will
locked up,
therefore
not
mean there's power to
battered.
compel
I mean.
evidence and witnesses, because it's important that it is comprehensive. It's important that it gets to every single issue, and as part of that process, there's accountability for individuals who did wrong.
does anyone think Starmer is going to let the inquiry expose the Labour Party in being complicit? No chance. He'll very likely throw some lowly local council members to the wolves to keep the public happy. But any footprints in the snow leading to his front door will most definitely be wiped away, so keep an eye on who is appointed as chair of the inquiry. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and leave a comment.